Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something really fascinating, Lithuania. You look at people from Lithuania, and there's just this incredible variety in appearance, right? Eye colors all over the place, different facial structures, skin tones. It's really striking compared to some other places, but it's more than just how people look, isn't it? This isn't random. There's a deep story here written right onto their faces. It's shaped by, thousands of years of history, genetics, interactions between different groups. So our mission today is to unpack why. Why this amazing human mosaic will go from ancient hunter-gatherers right up to modern times. We're hoping to uncover some surprising connections that might change how you see this Baltic nation.
Exactly. And we've really gone deep on the sources here, not just surface level stuff. We're talking solid research, recent genetic studies, historical accounts,
Oh,
all to piece together this complex picture. We want to get past just noticing the diversity and actually understand the patterns, the real influences behind it all, connect those dots.
okay, so to get started, we really need to rewind the clock, yeah. Back to Lithuania's history, because it wasn't always this relatively small Baltic country we see on the map today. For centuries, it was the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Huge. Stretching from the Baltic right down to the Black Sea. I mean, imagine that. What did that kind of reach actually do to the population mix?
Oh, it had an absolutely massive impact. You see, the Grand Duchy, running roughly from the 13th to the 18th century, wasn't just big geographically, it was incredibly multi-ethnic. You had the native Balts, of course, but huge numbers of Slavs, Jews, Tatars, Germans, Karaim, all sorts of groups.
So a real melting pot.
A true melting pot. It
Okay.
wasn't just about borders. It was constant interaction, cultural exchange, people moving around, marrying,
Yeah.
blending. And we actually have genetic data that backs this up now. There's a key study in 2021. It showed that modern Lithuanians have, on average, about 45% Baltic ancestry,
Okay.
but then around 30% Slavic influence. And even smaller, but still significant, traces from Finnic peoples, Nordic groups, even Turkic populations from further east.
Wow, so it's literally layered in their DNA.
Precisely. That visual diversity we see today, it's not an accident. It's the direct result of these specific historical layers. Researchers call it a broad phenotypic canvas. Basically, a huge range of possible physical traits because of this complex genetic history. A living time capsule.
A living genetic time capsule. I like that. Okay, let's zoom in from that big historical picture to what you actually see walking around Vilnius today, because visually it's just, well, striking. The eyes, for instance, something like 80% of Lithuanians have light eyes, blue, gray, green. That's incredibly high, right? One of the highest rates
Yes.
globally.
It is, yeah.
But it's not just the number of people with light eyes, it's the contrast you see side by side. You can easily see someone with piercing ice blue eyes and almost white blonde hair standing next to someone with deep mossy green eyes and dark auburn hair. And apparently, this isn't unusual. A 2019 study found Lithuania had the most varied hair and eye color combinations per person in the whole Baltic region, more than Latvia or Estonia.
That's right. It really is like a genetic lottery playing out visibly. And the question becomes, how did that specific mix come about? The research takes us way back. A big chunk of the Lithuanian genome, maybe around 40%, comes from Mesolithic Western hunter-gatherers.
Okay, Europe's earliest inhabitant.
Exactly. These were folks generally adapted to northern climates, light skin, but often darker hair and eyes, actually. But then later, during the Bronze Age, you get this massive shift. Indo-European pastoralists sweep in from the Pontic-Caspian steppe. Think modern Ukraine, southern Russia,
Right, the Yamnaya culture and related groups.
precisely those groups. They brought a whole new genetic package, including genes associated with taller stature and, crucially, lighter hair and eye pigmentation. This influx is a big part of why Lithuanians are, on average, so tall.
Ah, that makes sense. I've heard they're among the tallest populations.
They absolutely are. That 2020 WHO report, it put the average Lithuanian man at 181.3 centimeters, that's over 5'11", and women at 167.5 centimeters, about 5'6", consistently near the top globally.
So that height is a direct echo of those Bronze Age migrations.
In large part, yes. It's a clear physical marker of that ancient genetic input.
Fascinating. So ancient migrations shaped eye color, height. What about other features? People often talk about distinct Lithuanian facial structures. Things like high cheekbones, maybe broader foreheads, more defined chins. Is there science behind that too?
There is. Facial morphology studies. These are studies looking at the actual measurements and shapes of the skull and face, what scientists call craniofacial dimensions. Some work from 2016 placed Lithuanian features sort of bridging the gap between typical Nordic and Slavic populations.
Bridging, so reflecting that mix we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Their facial structure physically mirrors their genetic position right at that crossroads of Northern, Eastern, and Central European ancestries. It's a visible sign of their history.
Okay, so they've got all this blending, this multi-ethnic history, these different genetic layers, which makes me wonder, how do they still retain such unique Baltic genetic markers? I've read they have surprisingly ancient DNA, too. Is that, like, a contradiction?
You've hit on something called the Baltic enigma. It's a real puzzle for population geneticists.
An enigma. Okay, tell me more.
The puzzle is this. How can a population group hold on to one of Europe's oldest, most distinct genetic signatures? Specifically, studies from 2017 suggest around 25% unbroken ancestry, tracing directly back to those Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, a level you just don't see maintained elsewhere in Europe.
Wow, 25% Mesolithic. That's huge.
Remarkable. So how did they keep that ancient core while also showing all the physical traits and, importantly, the strong cultural links they share with their diverse neighbors, Slavs, Germans, Scandinavians?
Right. It seems like those things should pull in opposite directions.
Exactly. It challenges the simple idea that genetic isolation always means cultural isolation, or vice versa. It's like, maybe like wearing ancient chainmail under a modern football jersey.
Yeah.
Or the other way around.
Ah, I like that analogy.
You have this genetically conservative core, preserving that deep lineage, combined with a very dynamic cultural history of interaction and exchange.
So, does that chainmail show signs of, I don't know, rusting? Or integrating bits of the jersey? How does the enigma actually work?
That's a great question. It's not about absolute genetic purity, of course.
Hmm.
That doesn't really exist. The enigma is more about the proportion of that ancient DNA they managed to retain, despite being at such a major historical crossroads. It probably points to a complex mix of factors, maybe some geographical isolation provided by forests and marshlands helped historically, but also periods where, culturally, people tended to marry within their own Baltic-speaking groups, even while trading and interacting with others.
Okay, so not total isolation, but maybe selective integration, kind of balancing act over centuries.
That seems to be the picture emerging, a complex dance between retaining identity and absorbing influences.
Right. Now, we've talked about the big currents, Balts, Slavs, Indo-Europeans, but what about other, maybe less obvious groups that added to the mix?
Absolutely essential to bring those in. History is rarely just about the biggest groups. Our sources highlight several distinct minority communities that have added subtle but important threads to Lithuania's appearance over the centuries. Think about the Lipka Tatars, for instance. Muslim warriors originally invited from the Golden Horde, settling centuries ago.
Tatars. In Lithuania?
Yes, a small but persistent community. And the Karaite Jews, or Karaim, a Turkic-speaking group with really unique origins, also with a long history there. And various Romani groups, too.
Okay, how did they influence the overall look?
Well, through intermarriage over generations, these groups introduce different features into the wider gene pool. Maybe slightly different facial structures, sometimes darker skin pigmentation, different hair textures like curly hair. So if you occasionally see a Lithuanian with, say, features that don't perfectly fit the tall, blonde, blue-eyed stereotype, maybe olive skin or hazel eyes or particular nose shape, it could easily be an echo of these historical minority contributions.
So even small communities leave a visible trace over time.
Definitely. Especially as societies become less segregated and people mix more, particularly in cities, it all adds to that broad phenotypic canvas.
It really reinforces that idea of a mosaic. Okay, let's bring the timeline forward a bit. The more recent past, especially the post-Soviet era, that must have brought new changes too, right?
For sure. After Lithuania regained independence, and even during the Soviet era, there was movement. You had significant populations of Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians, Poles settling or already living within Lithuania's borders.
And today?
Today, something like 50% of Lithuania's population identifies with a minority ethnic group. That continued mixing definitely keeps blurring any simplistic lines about what a typical Lithuanian looks like.
Which leads to an interesting point, because sometimes you do hear attempts to define a typical look.
Yes, and this is where it can get sensitive.
Yeah.
Some sources mention nationalist viewpoints that promote a very narrow, often idealized image, tall, fair-skinned, light eyes, as the true ethnic Lithuanian look.
But that doesn't really match the complex reality we've been discussing.
Not at all. Anthropology and genetics are pretty clear. National identity and genetic uniformity almost never line up perfectly anywhere. Human populations are just too messy, too dynamic. Lithuania's strength, visually and culturally, seems to lie precisely in its complexity, its layered history, not in some imaginary homogeneity.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, stepping back a bit, how does this unique physical profile play out on the world stage? I mean, you do notice Lithuania punching above its weight in areas like international beauty pageants
hmm
and, of course, sports, especially basketball. Is there a link there?
I think there certainly is. That combination we discussed, the height, often strong or symmetrical facial features, probably gives what some might call a photogenic edge. That might help explain success in pageants, which often value certain physical archetypes.
Makes sense. And basketball.
Ah, basketball. It's practically a religion there, isn't it?
Huh. Feels like it sometimes.
And it directly reflects that height trend we talked about. Lithuania consistently produces an incredible number of very tall athletes per capita. It's not just genetics, obviously. There's a huge cultural focus, great coaching, nutrition plays a role. But the genetic predisposition for height, stemming partly from those ancient migrations, definitely provides a foundation.
So the basketball court is like where genetics meets culture and training?
You could absolutely say that. It's a perfect storm of factors, with genetics being a key one.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive into why Lithuanians look the way they do, it seems the answer isn't just, lots of blue eyes or they're tall. It's this incredibly rich, deep history under the surface, isn't it? A real mosaic made up of ancient hunter-gatherers, Bronze Age steppe riders, medieval traders, warriors, scholars, refugees, all leaving their mark.
Exactly. It's not a simple blend. It's millennia of human movement, adaptation, mixing, sometimes isolation, resistance, all playing out. So Lithuania's face, it really isn't one face at all. It's countless faces reflecting this ancient, constantly evolving, and truly fascinating story.
It's quite profound when you think about it that way. You've just heard a story spanning continents and ages, visible today in people walking down the street. History made visible.
So maybe the takeaway is this. Next time you meet someone from Lithuania or see pictures, don't just notice the features. Try to remember the incredible journey encoded there, the echoes of steppes, forests, and ancient settlements.
Right, and maybe if you have Lithuanian heritage yourself, just think about it. You're carrying a living archive, a direct link to one of Europe's most complex and fascinating genetic legacies. It puts a whole different perspective on things, doesn't it? A powerful connection to a deep shared past.